everybody, welcome back to my channel. Happy spooky season. I am so excited that Halloween is approaching so quickly and it's finally starting to feel like fall outside. I have a ton of super spooky videos in the works for you guys, but today I'm going to be showing you 29 Glitch in the Matrix TikToks. I know I haven't done one of these in such a long time. I don't come across as many Glitch in the Matrix TikToks as I do spooky ones, so it takes me a lot longer to like accumulate enough to come up with a video for them. But now that we are almost 30, I figured it is time to make a video. If you guys do like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And of course, I just sat down to film this, and the groomer is texting me that it's time to pick up Oscar from his haircut. So without further ado, I'll let you guys get into the video, and I'm gonna go pick up Oscar. Our first TikTok comes from the page Haunted TikToker, which unfortunately is a repost page. I could not find the original creator who made this video, but it is still interesting nonetheless. This user says she was at the orthodontist, and while she was sitting in the chair, she was really bothered by the claw clip that was at the back of her head, so she took it out and put it in her pocket. Later, she goes to get her keys out of her pocket, and her claw clip falls out onto the ground. So she puts it back in her hair. And then a little later, when she goes to put her keys back in her pocket, she finds a second claw clip.
I'm at work right now, but I just had my first glitch in the Matrix experience, question mark. You know, all those stories where people are like, I broke a cup, but I found the exact same cup in my cabinet later, or I'm wearing a necklace that I hadn't bought until a few months later, stuff like that. So my hair was super frizzy today, and so I put it up in this clip, right? White marble clip, I think from like Dollar Tree. But then I was at the orthodontist today, looking at my Invisalign or something, and it hurt when my head was against the chair, so I took the clip out and I put it in my pocket. So then I'm out of the orthodontist and I'm walking to my car, and I pull my keys out of my pocket, but something crashes to the ground at the same time, and so I look down and it's the clip. The clip fell out of my pocket as I pulled my keys out and landed on the ground in front of me. So I pick the clip up and I'm like, okay, whatever, and I put my hair back up really quick, and I get in my car and I drive off to wherever, my work. So now I'm parked outside my work, my hair is up, I turn my car off, and I put my keys in my pocket, but I feel something else in my pocket. Clip was in my pocket, but it was in my hair at the same time, and I only have one of them. I'm sure someone that works at Dollar Tree is gonna tell me they like came in a 2-pack or something, so I definitely had to. And sure, but then why did it fall out of my pocket? How did I put it in my hair? And then how did another one end up in my pocket is the question.
We talk about duplication glitches so often, and I always say how much I wish it would happen to me, because I would love to have an item that I use frequently just like multiply. I mean, like, who wouldn't want that? But to her point that she makes at the end about how maybe Dollar Tree sold 2 in a pack, and so she does have 2 of them, that doesn't explain why there would be a second one in her pocket. You'd think if she noticed it from just putting her keys back in her pocket, she would have noticed it when she put the first claw clip in her pocket. Obviously, there wasn't anything else in her pocket when she put the first claw clip in. So how did the second one get there is the question. To me, for the most part, these duplication glitches, like especially when someone explains like why it can't be just an accident or coincidence or something, I'm usually pretty on board, and I have to say the same with this one. I really don't know how that second claw clip got there, but I guess it is a good day because now she has 2 claw clips. Our next TikTok is by the user Eva Diva, and this is something we have seen many times before. She experiences a glitch where she is getting duplicating broken nails.
So I made this video a few days ago. My nail broke now. The nail was meant to break now. The doppelganger wasn't meant to appear. And it has real nail in it, so there must have been a time glitch.
I've seen this multiple times before, and I never know how to explain this. Nails are such like a unique thing that typically like multiple people aren't getting the exact same set of nails. Like, so you have 10 of them, and when there's an 11th one, like, I don't know how to explain where that would come from. Especially because the weird part, again, like she said, is that there is a piece of like regular nail underneath. It was attached to a nail, and it took regular nail off with it when it broke off. But where did it come from? Who else would have the exact same nails as her? It doesn't make sense. And it also is interesting to me that it is not the same shape as the other one. It's not like an exact match. It's like the nail are the same, but the point where it broke off is not. So that is another interesting thing to me. I will say that I don't think there's a point in the video where she shows every single nail on her finger, and I could be wrong about that. But to me, that says maybe it could be from another finger, but if it's not the case, then I really don't know how to explain this. Our next TikTok is by the user Stop Atelli, and she explains that one day she is driving and she is about to cross a busy intersection. As she approaches, the light turns green, but no cars move. And as she looks around, she notices that there is no wind moving, there's no pedestrians moving, everyone is frozen.
Tell me a story about a time that you know that you saw something, but you don't ever tell this story because you know that no one would.
I was so happy when I saw this because I'm like, I have a story for this. Okay, so, in high school, I was driving home and there was, like, I was driving up to a four-way intersection. It's like a really, really, really busy intersection, like multiple lanes going every direction. And I'm pulling up and I can see, because I'm coming up from a hill, and I can see the light and it's green. And so I'm like going the speed that you would go if you're expecting a green light. And the cars on the left and on the right of me, like, aren't moving at all. Like, okay, whatever. So I pull up to the green and I'm not gonna like be the only person crossing the street. And so I look around and like none of the other cars are moving. Oh, also, so when I started pulling up to the intersection, so like I went to like turn down my music because I was like, oh, maybe there's an ambulance that I'm just not hearing because my music's blasting. Before I could turn it down, when I first started getting up to the green light, before I could turn it down, my music just turned off. I didn't touch it at all. I just turned off. So that was weird. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I'm like looking around trying to figure out why none of these cars are moving. And then it kind of felt like nothing was moving. And I'm like, this is really weird. And that's when I noticed these people on the corner, pedestrians, who were not moving. Like these were pedestrians and they were like frozen, completely frozen. So I'm starting to get incredibly freaked out. Like I'm looking around for any sign of life, like wind, an animal, and I'm seeing nothing and I'm getting so scared. And then all of a sudden, all the cars started driving and my music like turned back on. Like just all of a second, and like none of it happened. And I drove home and I was like, Mom, something happened. And she was like, okay, but I never talk about it because it sounds so crazy and I have no idea what it was, but it happened. Like this happened and it was so bizarre. Anyways, that's that.
What this really reminds me of is, I think it was like a Disney movie, but it was a movie that I watched as a kid where there is like, this guy has a watch and he can like press a button on the watch and freeze time, and he could just go around and do whatever he wants, and time is frozen. And like, no one has any recollection of time being frozen. So he could go around and like steal stuff from a store and no one would have any idea. They're just like paused. And then he clicks the watch again and everyone like goes back to what they were doing. I always think back to that movie, especially when I was a kid. I was always like, that would be so nice to be able to do that. Like I always thought about sleeping in as a kid, like not having to go to school bright and early in the morning. I could just click my little watch and freeze everyone so I could get another couple hours of sleep before going to school. But that is exactly what this is reminding me of. It's almost as if someone had a magical time freezing watch and froze everyone and it didn't work on her, which is very far-fetched and not realistic. And I'm not at all saying that I believe that's what happened here, but I also don't know what happened here, because if she truly was looking around and everyone was frozen and then just randomly resumed action, I don't know how you explain that. That is really scary. Like imagine everyone was frozen for like a long time and you're just like walking around like looking at all these people that are just like not moving. That would be scary. Like that sounds like a horror movie for sure. But I really don't know how on earth you would explain that. Let me know if you have any explanations. Let me know, like science people. I always call the science people, especially for the glitch in the Matrix stuff, because like if there's a logical explanation, I'd love to know, but I really can't think of one for this. Our next TikTok is by the user Rawsun9, and he explains that he is near Burbank Airport and he looks up at the sky and sees a Southwest plane just floating in midair.
Okay, I legit just saw a Southwest airplane floating in the air. It wasn't moving. The plane was not moving. It was just in the air floating. I didn't film it. It wasn't moving. I promise you it was not moving. It was probably, it was like yay high. It was just frozen up there. Was it hovering? Like, it was not moving. If anybody knows if planes can even do this, like it was a full plane hovering
How do you explain this? Like, I mean, to be honest, I don't understand how planes fly to begin with. I don't even like to think about it. But I don't think it's possible for a plane to just be like sitting there in midair. Like, it's not like a stoplight, which is why, like, if you can't land yet, you like circle because you can't just stop in midair. So how could a Southwest plane just be stopped in midair? Like, I've seen many planes flying over my head and never once have they looked like they were stopped in midair. So how do you explain this? Is it like some special angle that he was seeing it from possibly that made it appear to be frozen? And if so, why don't more people experience this? If not, how is a plane just like stagnant in the air? Let me know, please. I would love to hear a sciencey explanation behind this. Our next TikTok is by the user The Golden Mirrors. Our poster explains that she is visiting the area she grew up in, and the city itself holds a lot of bad memories for her from her childhood. So she's having a pretty rough time while she's there. At some point, she ends up going to her old school, and she stops in a hallway when she gets what can only be described as a bit of deja vu.
It's been 1 year today, so let's tell this glitch in the Matrix story that is not like anyone you've probably ever heard before. I was born in the Central Valley in California and lived in Fresno until about 12, 13, and I've only been back a handful of times because it doesn't exactly hold great memories for me. Well, my grandfather, before he passed, was still living down at an assisted care facility in Fresno, and his health had taken a turn for the worse. So my mom and I hopped on a plane last July to the place I swore I would never go back to. I made the intention that I was going to be putting some things to bed that were difficult from my past. And I guess the universe heard me and definitely has a sense of humor because this was at our gate in Fresno. Before our family left Fresno, it really was not a good time for me because I was a budding intuitive going through puberty while there were traumatic things happening in the household. If you know anything about the spiritual world, that is a recipe for disaster. It was a psychic storm. I hated this house. It made my stomach hurt. This is when I started to see shadows out of the corner of my eye. I had an overwhelming impending sense of doom that would come over me. I didn't sleep well. Our dog would sit at the base of this hallway and bark down at something none of us could see. This was my brother's room, also the room where my Furby started talking to me, things that it was not supposed to say. For example, my cat would walk right by and it would go, "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty." If you're a millennial and you had a haunted Furby, I know I'm not alone. Anyway, this room was the worst. This was my room. My bed was right here. And it was, of course, the worst room in the house. It was freezing cold. I had electronics that would go haywire. I had a VCR that would turn on and off. It would push out the VHS tapes just for no reason. I had lamps that would turn on and off by themselves. It was freaky and I just hated that house. I had horrific nightmares in that room. Also at that time, I was in 5th, 6th grade, and I happened to find 2 other little gifted weirdos who had some of the same abilities I did. For example, this is when I accidentally remote viewed for the first time, but that's another story for another occasion. Suffice it to say, your girl was wide open and had no idea what was happening. Again, this is in the past. We're talking 1998, 1999. So let's fast forward. It's 2023, last summer. I'm walking around, my mom's hanging out in the car, there's nobody on campus, school's out, and I'm just trying to take a deep breath and let some things go that have been following me around for a long time. And I'm talking traumatic memories. I round a corner, 35 years old, right, last summer, and I look down this hallway and I remember that there was a modular unit, almost like an old single wide, that used to be used for kids for an after school like babysitting program. When the bell rang and classes were done for the day, we'd go hang out and wait for our mom to pick us up. I was struck by a memory of being 11 years old, my mom being gorgeous in her 30s, coming to pick up my brother and I. We scrambled and got our little backpacks. It must have been late fall, maybe even winter, because it was dark outside when she picked us up. I remember holding my mother's hand while my brother held her other hand, and we were walking down this corridor. And when I got to about this space, I had forgotten this memory until this moment, but 11-year-old me remembers looking over and seeing a woman who looked super old at the time, but probably about mid-late 30s, who had brown hair and was wearing white, and she was just smiling at me. And my little 11-year-old self was like, well, she doesn't seem scary. She seems nice and friendly. Wonder who she is. And then I just went on my way with my brother and my mom, I don't know, to go make dinner, hang out, do homework, whatever. In that moment, last July, 2023. I looked down at what I was wearing. Sorry, it gets me choked up to talk about it. I was wearing white. I was the woman that I saw when I was a kid. It's not that it scares me or that that's the big deal. It's because of what happened next. So at this moment, I'm like, okay, guys, I know I said I wanted to have some healing experiences, but this is pretty crazy. And I had this feeling that you need to follow those two little kids and that young mom in whatever timeline they're in. You need to follow them home back to that house. So I got in the car and I said, Mom, we have to go back to the house. And she said, what happened? Is everything okay? And I said, yeah, everything's okay, but we gotta go. And sorry, I'm getting red just talking about it. We parked in front of this house. That was my bedroom. And I heard this instruction, call back now. That little girl, that young part of you that was left in this house, that never got to grow up, that stayed there, and reintegrate that piece of you that was lost. My dog doesn't like it when I get upset. Call back that piece of you that was lost to the shadow. And it's time to reintegrate all of the pieces of you that were lost. So I sat there for a minute and I called her home. So if you've ever seen a mysterious figure that you couldn't quite make sense of, that seemed inviting and kind, but never really figured it out, maybe it was you. And maybe the lesson is that the one who was supposed to save us all these years is us.
In one of my previous videos, I alluded to this. I didn't realize that I never actually filmed a video with this specific TikTok in it, but in one of my paranormal TikToks, there was a video of a guy explaining a very similar scenario of him in his grandma's house, seeing a man down at the end of the hallway, and then years later, standing there and realizing he was that man. And specifically, stories like these make me realize that time is not linear. We can absolutely, jump and leap into different timelines. And it's something that I personally heavily believe in, but hearing stories like this is just such a good confirmation of that for me. And I'd like to think that this story itself kind of goes both ways. There was this nice looking friendly woman who this little girl saw, and maybe it had some effect on her in some way, but the little girl ended up later having effect on Meg as she got older, and then remembered the situation. You know, as she said, she was having a really rough time being back there, but having this memory and then realizing that she should follow them back to the house was kind of probably a closure thing for her. So I think she was there and the little girl saw her, but the little girl in the end, her as her younger self, really kind of ended up helping her later on in the future. And I think this is just such a really interesting concept. I honestly, I don't know if it's paranormal or glitch in the matrix, which is why you're seeing these in two different types of videos, but it is certainly interesting to me. Our next story is by user Chloe Booley, and this story freaks me out and is just so absolutely insane. I cannot wait to hear your guys' opinions on it. But essentially the poster, Chloe, explains that she is on a school field trip and they are out skiing and snowboarding, and she was not very good. She had no experience, so she was in the beginner group where they all stayed close together with instructors/teachers. She was kind of in the back of the group. So the rest of the group rounded a corner, and you'd think when she also rounded that corner, she would see them up ahead. But she saw no one. Her classmates were not in front of her, and the strangers that were behind her were no longer there either.
What's something that happened to you that sounds so fake that if you were to tell people, they wouldn't believe you?
This is a story that I haven't told many people because frankly, I feel like everybody would think I'm crazy. When I was 16 years old, I went on a ski trip with my school. I live in Australia and snow is rare, so we had to go an 18-hour bus ride down south to the snow. I was with my friends, we're having a good time, we were excited to go snowboarding, but on only the second day of this trip, my entire life shifted. So because we weren't experienced in snowboarding, most of us school kids would go with the people who worked at this snow lodge, and we'd all snowboard as one big group down the slopes. Some of the courses were more easy, some of them were more difficult, really just depending on what sort of experience you had as a snowboarder. I had none, so I was snowboarding with a big group of people, but I was the person at the very back of this group. Everyone starts to turn around this big mountain. Because I'm 5 seconds behind everyone, I turn around the mountain 5 seconds later. Mind you, it's a super busy day on the snow, it's a beautiful sunny day, and there are people everywhere. And not just us school kids, a lot of people. But when I turn around this big mountain, everyone is gone. Everybody who was in front of me was gone, and everybody who was skiing or snowboarding behind me was gone. Like there were people who were not in the group I was snowboarding with, other people behind me. So once I went around this mountain, they should have followed. I should have been able to see everybody in front of me, because after I turned this mountain, it was just a straight long slope down the hill. But I was dead alone. I'm obviously instantly confused, shocked. I don't understand what's happening. I get my phone out to call my best friend who was on this ski trip with me. And I remember so distinctly, my phone was on like 75% charge. Like it was charged. But as soon as I pressed this little circle to enter my phone, my whole screen went black and the no battery signal came up. The only way I could make sense of what happened is that everybody somehow just beat me to the bottom of this course, and everyone behind me somehow went past me without me realizing. I was just like grasping at straws. So I continued to just keep snowboarding down the hill, hoping that I'd just make it to the end. The thing is that there was no end. There was no end to this course, or whatever alternate reality course I had just jumped into. As I mentioned, I was not an experienced snowboarder, so I was trying my best to snowboard, but I kept falling over. I decided to just eventually give up, clip my snowboard off, and walk. I walked for like an hour. I was tired. I was carrying this heavy snowboard. I was walking in snow, which is just as hard as walking in sand. And after what feels like forever, I finally came to this, what looked like an abandoned ski lift. It was really dingy and old and creaky and looked scary. I thought my best chance was to get onto this ski lift so I could get up high and have a look around, hoping that maybe I'd find where the main area is, because in the main area there's like a bar and cafes and restaurants and whatever. I thought if I can see that, I know which direction to walk in and I can just make my way over there before the sun sets. But when I get onto this ski lift, there's nothing but snow and trees. And obviously I was freaking out because it was sunset, like it was about to be dark. But then I was also thinking, how the fuck did this happen? Like I was with a group of people in a busy area. And also because I was a child and a beginner at snowboarding, obviously they took us to a course that was super close to like the main area. The fact that I'm now on this single-seater ski lift looking out 360 views and there's nothing, I didn't know, what do you even do? And it was on that ski lift, I just broke down sobbing. Like I genuinely thought I was going to die. I just wanted my mum. And this ski lift just drops me off at nowhere, like no destination, no platform, nothing. The cabin that we were staying at, the way to get to this main area to go skiing and snowboarding in was that we had to catch a shuttle bus and then an underground subway. The sunset, it's dark. You have to understand how scary it was. Because when I say dark, I mean I couldn't barely see what was in front of me. There's no city lights anywhere. Didn't have the torch on my phone to shine. Just as I was about to give up and sit down and accept what was going to happen, I saw like this glowing light in the distance. And what it led me to was like this glowing tunnel with a staircase leading down into it. And what led me to the bottom was an underground subway. How that was there, I don't know. Why it was there, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense for there to be a proper station there because I was in the middle of nowhere. But sure enough, the subway came and I jumped on it. And it took me to the shuttle buses and I took a shuttle bus back to the cabin. And when I walked into the cabin, all the school kids I was with, all the teachers that were there were all having like dinner together. And I was like, was no one looking for me? And everybody very nonchalantly, not in like even a rude way, were just like, oh, hey, Chloe, there you are. It was almost as if they were hearing me through a filter and they weren't grasping the gravity of what I was trying to say. I don't know. The whole thing was weird. The energy was off. For the next few days, I stayed in the cabin. I refused to leave the cabin. And then when I got home, things felt slightly off. I don't really know how to explain it, but for example, certain objects in my room were in like a different place. And it's not as if anybody in my family would have gone in and rearranged my room. It didn't feel like that's what happened. It felt as if that is where it belonged. But I knew that it was in a different spot before I left. Even just weird things like timing felt different. Everything was just slightly tweaked. When I told my sister about this story a few years later, she said to me, there probably is a timeline out there where you did get lost in the snow and quantum jumped. And she said there's probably a timeline out there where our family is grieving you, which is so scary and sad to think. But that's my story where if I told anybody, they probably wouldn't believe me.
Honestly, this story stresses me out so much. I would have had like a million panic attacks during that time. I am so impressed that she like persevered and continued to get back. I would have been so scared. Honestly, I wonder, okay, let me finish my first thought. I would be so scared being out there by yourself and having no idea where anyone is, where you are, how to get back. Like being in the middle of nowhere all alone in like a place you're not familiar with would like it would send me over the edge for sure. So I am so impressed that she managed to like have it together enough to actually make it back and figure it out. My second thought is I don't understand how there is absolutely nobody, unless, like she said at the end, that she did die in an alternate reality. And, you know, somehow the wires got crossed and she jumped into a different timeline where she survived it. I wonder if it was some kind of like a purgatory situation that she found herself in, and that's why there was absolutely nobody. And I'm also interested, did she have to go through all these hoops to get there, to go skiing in the first place? Like, to me, it is absolutely impossible that there weren't like people around to help her. And if it was like so vast out there and like confusing to get back, and again, what she said, the subway station on top of it, none of it makes sense. And to me, it really feels like it was a test. Like if she wants it enough to like actually survive, that she has to figure out how to get back. Like that's what I'm thinking. Again, I always say this, but like that could be a good movie. I just like, I literally don't know how else to explain that. Like how are you in a populated area and then everyone just disappears? Like it really feels like she crossed over to like a holding place, and then, you know, probably on her journey back in the subway or something, she crossed over to a reality where she survived. Every time I hear this story, I've like watched this video a couple times now, and it is, I can't even believe it. It is so crazy. Our next TikTok is by the user Reclaiming the Chaos. In this story, she explains to us how she believes she also jumped timelines and avoided death. She experienced a situation where it started snowing out of the blue on her drive home. And as she's exiting off the highway, she hits a slippery patch and realizes that she is going to hit the cars in front of her unless she does something. And she explains that she should have gone left, but instead she goes right. And that was a poor choice because it would have resulted in her hitting many things, tumbling, going into a swampland, and she said she absolutely should have died, but she magically found herself on the opposite side of the intersection unharmed.
I think I jumped timelines. Let's talk about it. This was a little over a year ago at this point. I want to say mid to late November, and I was going to visit a friend who lives in a town about 30 miles away. It's important to state that it was like unseasonably warm at the time, and I didn't even take a coat with me. It's also important to note that like every single day, I checked the weather and there was no snow or any kind of precipitation in the forecast. So I was surprised that evening after dark when on my way home, it began to snow. My main concern here was visibility because, like I said, it was unseasonably warm and I wasn't concerned about accumulation. But when I finally got to my exit and pulled off, while the ramp did not look slippery at all, it just looked damp like the highway had, as soon as I started to apply the brake, I began to slide. This is a fairly long exit ramp. I want to say like 200 yards long. And I didn't start applying the brake, as I never do, before I had gotten about halfway there. I was probably still going about 50 miles an hour at this point, and as soon as I started to slide, I knew that there would be trouble. There were 3 or 4 cars stopped at the stoplight at the end of the exit ramp, and my first concern was hitting one of them. What I should have done in this case was try to steer to the left, because to the left of the exit ramp, there really aren't any hazards. It's just grass, the grade is fairly flat, you know. But to the right, there are quite a lot of hazards. In no particular order they are. 1, a giant wall of signs advertising different like restaurants and gas stations and stuff that you can find near the exit. 2, the grade of the ground is at a decline into a little embankment, so there is a risk of rolling. 3, a little further to the right, several yards, there's a swampy area. And 4, there is a smaller collection of signs at the end of the exit ramp. So as I'm sure you can guess, I go off the road. And at this point, a lot of things start racing through my head. My first concern is that I'm gonna roll, because at this point, I'm at like a 45-degree angle. My second concern is that I'm going to hit that big bank of signs, because I went off the road not too far from it. And I thought, crap, I'm gonna hit these signs going like 50 miles an hour, and that's gonna be it. That's lights out. Like I said again, if I had rolled and continued rolling, I would have ended up in that swampy area. And even if by some miracle I missed these 3 hazards, there was still the risk of me hitting the other bank of signs at the end of the exit ramp. And even aside from all of these things, there's still quite a bit of distance between myself and the cross street through the intersection. And yet somehow, in what felt like a second, I was through the intersection and on the cross street as though I had just turned right at the light. I remember my ears ringing really badly and what felt like a really great sense of pressure in my head. And granted, that could just be because of stress, right? Like it was a really stressful situation, but nothing was so strong as the confusion. I was literally just sitting there. My car stopped in the middle of the road, and eventually other cars started slowing down behind me and started honking their horns, and it kind of like brought me back to reality, and I had to turn around because normally I would turn left at the stoplight to go home. And the entire way home after this point, my jaw is dropped. I cannot make sense of what just happened. When I finally get home, I shut the car off. I just sit there for a second, you know, without having to worry about driving or anything. Again, just stunned and trying to figure out how to talk to my wife about it. And then also a thought goes through my head that, oh crap, there's probably something wrong with the car. You know, the front bumper being cracked or, you know, a punctured tire, something. And so as soon as I collect myself and get out of the car and start checking it out, I fully expect to find something. But there was nothing. Like, and when I say nothing, I mean like there wasn't even mud or grass stuck in the wheel wells. And like I said, the ground had not frozen yet. There should have been something. There should have been stuff stuck in the grill, especially like if I can't even talk about it, like my brain still can't wrap around it. If I were to have just plowed straight through, which I don't know how I would have without sinking into the mud or like hitting something else, how did I get all the way like through that distance from where I went off the road to the cross street? Like, there would have been something, right? Even though it rattled me so much to get back on the highway, my brain couldn't let it go. It couldn't close the loop. And so I needed the next day to get in my car and go do a quick loop on the highway so I could get off on that exit and see what the exit itself looked like. And there was nothing there. And like, when I say nothing there, I mean like there were no tire tracks, no skid marks, nothing. I'm obviously willing to entertain the possibility that this was just a series of like really fortunate coincidences, but as someone who's really interested in quantum physics, I can't shake the feeling that I may have unalived in another timeline and just popped into this one where the accident never happened. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Let me know. I'm very curious. This is something that I don't really talk about with people. Again, because I think I just sound like I've lost it. So yeah, I'd be really interested to know your stories. Let me know what you think.
Imagine how crazy of a feeling that is, that you're like bracing for impact, like fully expecting to get hurt or worse. And all of a sudden you're just like you poof and you're perfectly fine. And like, you don't know how you got there, but also you're in the middle of the road. So you have to like keep driving and like get somewhere safely before you can pull over and comprehend everything that just happened. Also, this kind of reaffirms my aversion to driving in the snow. Right now, that's not so much an issue considering I live in Southern California, but I have every intention to be living back in a cold climate in the Midwest by next winter. So, unfortunately, I will be back to dealing with that again. Driving in the snow is just something I cannot get behind, and this video has further enforced that. To me, it's almost like a sign that I should just not drive in the snow, because maybe I won't get so lucky and just pop across the intersection like she did. I think it would be so interesting if she had a dash cam and she was like able to see exactly what happened. We're actually going to discuss a video later on that involves a dash cam. But I would love to like see if it like blacked out, or like I would love to see footage of exactly what happened. Overall, I am really glad she is safe and made it out of the situation alive, but it is certainly an interesting story to tell. Our next two TikToks are by the user Funeral Babe. For the first one, I saw it when she posted it a long time ago, but I cannot for the life of me find it. So the first one I'm going to show you is from a repost account, and it has some like weird gifs on it. Ignore those. It's still the same video, just with a couple added gifs. She explains at the funeral home she works at, she had ordered prayer cards for a family. She explains that they were very specific custom prayer cards that she had to order from a third-party vendor. She held on to these prayer cards and the ashes for a couple months until they had everyone together to do a little gathering for their loved one. She gave them the prayer cards on a Friday, and their gathering was set to be on Sunday. On Saturday, she gets a call from a random restaurant asking why she sent them prayer cards.
I don't even know how to say this, but I experienced a glitch in the Matrix funeral edition, and honestly, this is probably one of the craziest, most unexplainable events in my entire life. I am losing sleep over it, so I'm asking somebody to please take notes and help me understand this, because like, I literally just can't. So 2 months ago, I make funeral arrangements with the family. They have a cremation and they order 50 prayer cards. 50 prayer cards. Now, the cards they picked out were so unique, so rare, so beautiful. I'd never even seen them before, don't carry them. I had to order them custom made from a third-party vendor, in which I did. They mailed them to me. Now, I held on to those prayer cards and the cremated remains for about 2 months, until last week, on Friday, when the family called because they wanted to pick them up. So they come in, they pick them up. I'm like, oh, when are you having your service? They said they're going to do something on Sunday, which is in 2 days. I was like, oh, that's really nice. Where are you having it? They were like, we haven't decided yet. You know, Aunt Ida was really old and she kind of outlived all of her friends, so we'll figure it out. I'm like, great. You know, I hope it's beautiful and so on and so forth. I didn't go, wasn't invited, didn't keep in touch, whatever. Now Monday rolls around, okay? So that was Friday, now we're on Monday. And I get a message from a restaurant who had called and they were asking why we mailed them prayer cards. I didn't mail any restaurant prayer cards. Like, what is this about? I call them back. I'm like, why do you think I mailed you prayer cards? She was like, because your ad is on them. You know, we put the funeral home ad on the prayer cards. I was like, no, I didn't mail you anything. What is the return address on the envelope? She said there was none. I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't know. I was like, what is the name of the deceased? You know? She says, it's Aunt Ida. I was like, well, that's weird. I was like, I gave the family those cards on Friday. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they mailed them to you. Like, maybe I thought maybe they didn't have their service on Sunday. I don't really know. I just know I didn't do it. So I was like, they'll figure it out. Later that day, I get a phone call from the daughter of Aunt Ida. She's like, Melissa, why did you mail the restaurant prayer cards? I was like, I didn't. It's like, I talked to the restaurant. I explained her the same thing I explained to you. She was like, how did you know we went to that restaurant? I was like, I didn't know you went there. I didn't know anything. She said, yeah, we went there yesterday, which was Sunday. And I said, did you have the prayer cards that I gave you? She said, yeah, 50 of them. She said she handed some out. She even had a few extra. I was like, okay, that's weird. I said, you know, when you go to the restaurant and pick up those prayer cards that were mailed to you, can you give me a call? Because I'm thinking the prayer cards have to be different. Maybe like a friend or something found out that was the restaurant, ordered them, they came late. I don't know, but there had to be a reasonable explanation. Well, she goes and she gets them and she calls me. And the prayer cards, the custom prayer cards that I had ordered from a third-party company, they were exactly the same, identical, ad on it and everything. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. I'm like, return address? She said no. But the post, you know, like when it goes to the post office, was a zip code that wasn't near either of us. So I was like, or the company I ordered it from, like totally different counties. I was like, this is really weird. So we were just like, wow, unexplainable. But I don't let things go. So I called the company because now I'm thinking maybe there is a chance that, like, I don't know, somebody in the office ordered it and like somehow magically knew the restaurant and mailed them. Like, that would be crazy, but there's got to be some kind of reasonable explanation that there is more than 50 identical prayer cards, right? Well, here's what happens.
Right, so yeah, you got 50 the last time.
And there was never a reorder put in?
No, there was not.
Long pause.
Okay. You know,
So mean.
can I just tell you something really quick?
So if you follow me, you understand that only 50 prayer cards were ever ordered. Custom prayer cards were ever ordered. Family picked them up on Friday. They had their celebration on Sunday. They handed some out. They had a few extra. Monday morning rolls around and there is 50 identical prayer cards that show up to the restaurant that they only chose on Saturday night. She literally has more than 50 prayer cards in her possession. And to be honest, they didn't need an additional 50 prayer cards. Me and Ida's daughter have literally exhausted any, even the wildest, craziest reason how this could happen. It's impossible. Make it make sense. Mwah!
I have no explanation. I have no thoughts, unless, you know, maybe she just wanted her family to have a lot of extra prayer cards, so she had them sent to the restaurant on her behalf. I don't know, because especially if they just picked the restaurant right before that, there is no way that someone could have had custom prayer cards delivered in that short time. Like, that literally would be impossible. And yet, here we are discussing the impossible thing that happened. It has to be a glitch in the matrix. Like, to me, there is no logical or rational explanation for it whatsoever. Our second TikTok is unrelated to her funeral business. She says that her sister recently had a baby and she was going over there to take some newborn photos of her nephew. She explains that after she's done taking the photos, she realizes she misplaced the little cover that goes on the camera lens. She looks everywhere for it and ends up finding it in her camera case. So she puts it on, moves along, and later on finds another camera lens cover.
I know I'm going to sound crazy, all right? And I don't know if it's the universe, if something's going on, okay? If I'm actually crazy, or if like I'm like a chosen one or something, because this is the second time this year that I am experiencing like a completely unexplainable event that literally You're not even gonna believe me. Okay, first it was the prayer cards, now. So I go to my sister's house, all right, to go take pictures. She just had a baby. I have a beautiful, perfect nephew now. So I went to go take some newborn pictures. I brought my nice big fancy camera, took some pictures. I went to go leave and I couldn't find the cap that went on the camera, like the lens. So we searched everywhere, couldn't find it. Finally, I found it in my camera bag because that would be the smart spot to leave it, you know? So I put it on the camera and problem solved, right? I just went in my pocketbook. I was looking for my keys and I found this camera cap. This little bag. I found a camera cap. So I'm like, wow, that's weird. I didn't put it on my camera. I was in a rush. Let me check my camera bag because I didn't even take it out of the car yet. Take my camera out to find out it has the cap on the lens. Now I have two. I only had one. I've got nothing to say.
I guess this is a good example of a duplication glitch that I don't really wish would happen to me because, like, what am I going to do with a second camera lens cover unless I, save it for if I lose the first one. That one is pretty useless, honestly. Kind of falls in the same category of a broken nail. But that's such a crazy thing because unless you're like a camera fanatic, like you don't just have extra camera lens covers. Like it comes with the lens or you have to order them separately, but like you'd remember if you ordered it separately. You don't just like have random camera lens covers laying around unless you just have an abundance of them and leave them laying around, which she obviously explains that she only had one of. And then it makes me wonder which one is the original? Is the first one she found the original, or did like it pop over from an alternate reality when she misplaced it and just happened to be in her camera bag? Oh, there's a bald eagle. It's reminding me of like Halloween Town when like you set something down and it goes missing and it goes to Gort's house. I feel like that's what I'm thinking has happened. Is like she set it down, she lost it, it disappeared, but instead it went to another dimension her and ended up in her camera bag. I don't know, like what do you think the logical explanation for this is? Our next TikTok is by the user PG Stories Official. And in this video, we can see a girl who is walking to go take a photo somewhere. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you see these two girls appear from behind her. I've seen so many videos like this. Like, I'm sure it has to be some kind of a trick of the eye. You would think. But it's so mind-boggling to me how they would have managed to stay perfectly hidden behind her that whole time while she was kind of like moving and turning. I honestly don't really know how that would be possible. Obviously, one would argue that that's more possible than them like jumping timelines. But at the same time, like literally who knows? To me, they both seem like equal possibilities. I don't know, like just imagine like you're exploring like a new town in one dimension and then all of a sudden you hop dimensions and you have no idea, but you're caught in the background of someone's video just appearing in this dimension. That would be a crazy thing to discover. Our next TikTok is by the user Fungus Among Us 23. This girl is in the car with her mom and they are driving and they see something weird. So she makes her mom turn around so she can record it to share with all of us. Essentially, they see some kind of like string-like thing floating in the middle of the sky and it doesn't appear to be attached to anything.
It doesn't just appear. So we'll have to come around. Do you see it? No. It's not that.
There it is.
Where?
Look.
Oh, let this guy go.
Did you not just see that?
No, are you filming?
Look
so
up,
I
look
can
up,
see?
look up.
Where am I looking?
Look! There's a floating tree.
I will say one thing that I noticed, maybe it's because my brightness was kind of down the first time I watched it, but the bridge, to me, at first, I thought that's what they were talking about. The bridge just, like, appeared out of nowhere. And, like, it honestly kind of startled me that all of a sudden there was a bridge there that I did not see when they were rounding the corner. So, I don't know, maybe other people did not have that reaction the first time they watched the video, but for me, the bridge was kind of a jump scare. And then to add to that, I don't know how to explain that thing just, like, floating there. I mean, I've seen tons of these, and I've shared tons of these with you, kind of along the lines of the Southwest Airlines video where the plane's just floating in there. I've seen like videos of birds just like floating in midair, like not flapping their wings or anything. I don't know how to explain it. It must be some kind of, like the only logical explanation in my mind is that it has to be a glitch. Either that or there's some very thin wire that is hanging on. But I think that would be something that the light would reflect on at some point during the video and you'd be able to see. So I really genuinely don't know how to explain this. Our next TikTok is by the user JPaul20. In the video, she explains that her and her husband have an espresso machine. And there is a particular kind of coffee bean that works best in the espresso machine. But her husband didn't realize this when they first got it, so he got the wrong kind and it turned out kind of mushy and gross. until eventually he bought the correct kind. They put the wrong kind on the shelf and just like left it there. One day, ran out of the right espresso beans, so she says, "You're just gonna have to use the bad ones until I get new ones." When he goes to get the bad ones out of the pantry, he realizes that the bag is still sealed as if they've never used them before.
A very weird glitch in the matrix thing just happened to my husband and I. We have a Breville espresso machine and you have to use like fresh coffee beans in the machine, otherwise it doesn't work right. Before we realized this, like months ago, my husband bought this like Black Cat espresso beans, but they're not fresh, they're just like packaged espresso beans. We found out that they didn't work in the machine because he was using them in the machine and it was all watery and it just wasn't good. So I told him to just stop using these in the machine. Fast forward to today, he ran out of his other espresso beans. I didn't have time to go to the store to get fresh ones. So I was like, just use those Black Cat espresso ones that you used to use, and it is what it is. He goes to use the beans, and the bag is not open. And he comes over to me and he says, "Did you buy a new bag of these?" And I was like, "No, why would I buy a new bag of those? You don't use them anymore." And he said, "Well, this bag isn't open." And now me and him are looking at each other like, somebody here is the asshole, and we don't know which one of us that it is. I'm like, okay, well, maybe you accidentally bought another bag. So we're like looking through the cabinets to see if there's an unopened bag because he only used the other bag like once or twice. It doesn't exist. We keep all of our coffee in one spot. We have like a little coffee area. There's no way for this one bag of beans to be new. It was used. I've watched him use these beans with my eyes. I made him a cup of coffee with those beans myself. So yeah.
That is so crazy to me because I think one thing is if you know you put it back in the pantry and you know you also did not buy 2 of them, there's no explanation for it. Because if you think there's a possibility you might have bought 2, but you know for sure that you put it in the pantry and there's not 2 in the pantry, that kind of debunks like having bought 2 of them, because then there would be 2 in the pantry. But if you know you only ever had 1 and it's somehow sealed, it can't possibly be a false memory of knowing that these beans are not good unless they've actually tested them out for themselves. And I've actually had a similar experience with a package of Oreos. I swear I ate a few of them, but next time I went to go open the package, I was confused because you know when you like open those and like the little mini strings, they like break and they're all kind of like curly and weird. It never goes back to like the way of pristinely sealed with the little sticky things that it does when you first get it. So I was really confused about why it was so pristinely sealed, and when I opened it, there were no Oreos missing. And I thought I was losing my mind. So I understand this feeling, and I don't know how to explain it. Like, I guess it's good that it was resealed and refilled because then it didn't go bad, I guess is the upside to this story. I don't know how you explain that. Things obviously do not reseal themselves and refill themselves on their own, so logical explanations would be appreciated. Our next 2 TikToks are by the user Candy Cane. And she starts out by stitching a video from another user who, unfortunately, all I can see is that it appears the name that they have on their profile is HK. Their video is completely gone, but they start out by talking about what is known as card shuffling in New Orleans. And card shuffling doesn't sound like what you think it does. It is actually a really interesting phenomenon that this user Candy Cane goes on to explain is when you go to a business and then all of a sudden, after you've left the business, you realize it no longer existed or is no longer there.
Establishment that you were damn sure convinced ought to be there no longer.
Paranormal experiences are completely normal to me. I know that's really weird to say, but I'm rarely ever freaked out. This is something that happened to me and it actually had me shook. I'm from an area that has a very rich history as far as hauntings go, and I've lived in multiple haunted houses, but I've never been as freaked out as my experiences that I've had in New Orleans. So this is 100% something that I can tell y'all this absolutely happened. If y'all didn't watch the video, go back and watch it, but they call this card shuffling. I've never heard it called that before, but cafes in the middle of the night will pop up, disappear. You won't be able to find certain things on Google Maps that you were certain that you saw before. And I do divination, but anytime people ask me to do that in New Orleans, I don't. I always compare it to a compass that just like spins. It goes crazy when you put it next to a magnet. It's like that type of energy. But I personally have experienced this twice, and I've been on the tail end of it like a third time of somebody else's experience. later you find out that it never existed or it completely disappears. And I've been wanting to talk about this for a while and really tell this story, because I talked about the phenomenon, but I never told my personal stories, because like I said, I had this happen to me twice, and I was on like the tail end of it happening to like a third person. Like I'm a part of their story, but I wasn't caught in this weird freaky warp of whatever. I have no explanation for what this even is, but the original creator called it card shuffling. So basically places around 3 a.m. in New Orleans, and some people in my comments said that this has happened in other states across the South, where it's like things are just shuffled around. Certain things disappear. Places, you could be in a bar or something, and then you find out that that place has never existed. You can't find it anywhere. And a lot of people are drawn to New Orleans for these paranormal experiences, and specifically the French Quarter. However, surprisingly, that was not my intention. I was just trying to be young and turn with my homegirl, and we ended up caught in this weird warp of space and time, and I'm not really sure how to explain this. And I tell the full story on the long form content place if you want to see that one, but I'm going to keep it short here. Mind you, neither one of us are drinking because she's driving. When we get there, we park the car, and this was the first time I'd ever seen this feature on the phone where you can set where you parked your car so you can find it again. Because I started to walk away, and she's like, hold on, like, let me set it. So I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, she explained it to me. I'm like, that's really dope. And I was like, well, I would have noticed where we were because the building was really specific and there was a cowboy. I'm gonna show what the cowboy is. I'm from the country. We're both from the country, so I'm used to seeing this in people's yards. It's not really common to have this like cutout display in like the city and in New Orleans, but I'm familiar with it. So I'm like, oh, I would have noticed this distinct building and the cowboy. I don't know if I can insert a picture. Okay, so this is what I mean by the cowboy. This is just like a yard display, and it was propped up against this building. Now, this is just something insignificant that I thought it was just insignificant that I just mentioned. We go, we have a good time. Eventually, my feet start hurting. I'm like, all right, let's go. I want to get in the bed. I want to eat. Like, I just want to go. So the car should not have been far. We start walking, and she's like, for some reason, like it's not even popping up. It's like I didn't even set it. So I'm like, that's really weird. But I remember the street name. I remember the distinct buildings. I remember things. So I'm like, we're gonna find it. Like, don't even trip. So we start walking. Lord, we walked around for hours, looking for the street, looking for the car. The maps aren't making sense. My phone's not making sense. Her phone's not making sense. We're walking around for hours looking for this car. In this one neighborhood, it made no sense. So we've been walking for a while. We're both aggravated, both confused. Like, and mind you, stone cold sober. Stone cold sober. None of this is making sense. So we see the cowboy and the building at the exact same time. I go to say something. Lord. And it's like we had been faked out so many times. I kind of didn't want to say something, and like we still weren't in the right place. Like, it made no sense. But Lord, so I see the cowboys like across the street. So I'm like, I know that the car is this way on this street. So I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm about to say something, and I don't know if she gasped or what, but we look up and we see the cowboy that's still there in the same spot that it had been. He gets up, just the shadow, gets up and starts walking across the street to where we are. So when she kind of like, I felt like she was going to say something, I just grabbed her hand and I'm like, it's okay. So I'm just like rubbing her hand, and if like women, we know, even if it's terrifying, somebody has to step up and be like the brave one. So I was being the brave one because I didn't want her to start like freaking out. So I'm holding her hand and I'm just like rubbing her hand. I'm like, it's okay, everything's all right. I'm like, just cross the street with me. So I hold her hand and I take her, and she's like stiff. So he's crossing the street this way, we cross the street that way. As soon as we just kept walking, I'm just like, it's okay, like, don't. She starts to say something to me. I'm like, don't say anything. And I'm just like rubbing her hand. I'm like, we're good, like everything's good. So we go like a little bit away. When we make it to the little building, I turn, bam, the car's right there. we must have approached this little area from every which direction for hours. Never came across the car, never came across the cowboy. I didn't watch it. After he like crossed, I kept my head straight. I'm just like holding her hand. I'm talking to her. I didn't watch it. I don't know. And it wasn't until I told this story, like I uploaded it yesterday on the long form content place. It wasn't until I told that story that I made the connection that possibly us crossing it might have been how we got out of that weird little loop. But it's been years and I hadn't made that connection until yesterday. So I don't really know. And again, this has happened to me again and to somebody else. And then when they kind of like came out of it, I was like at the end of that. But I don't have enough time for those stories. But let me know if you have more of an explanation for this, or if you've experienced something like this and where, especially if you experienced it in New Orleans. I really want to know about it. But yeah, let me know.
It is insane to me that like an entire business, an entire establishment could just disappear like that. That obviously very clearly does not make any sense. Like, to me, it literally sounds like timeline jumping, where you go to a different timeline where that restaurant never existed. But in that instance, it's like, does that just mean people timeline jump a lot in New Orleans or any city that this happens frequently? I guess it could be possible, because if there's more like energy, or could just be like an easier place to like jump timelines and shift and stuff like that. Completely possible, but it is so interesting to me that I've talked about New Orleans in a few previous videos and how it has such a rich history, but it really doesn't surprise me that of all places, that's where this is happening. It actually, quite frankly, kind of makes sense almost. But I find it so freaky that they were looking for their car for hours. And I have that feature where when I park my car, if it has been connected to Bluetooth, it'll show me on my maps where my car was parked. It has never failed me. So if all of a sudden that just like didn't work one time, it would definitely freak me out to begin with. But then wandering for hours, not being able to properly read maps, which sometimes maps are a little difficult to read, but not that difficult where you should be wandering for hours when you're completely sober and not be able to find your car, especially when you're with someone who also made a mental note of the area. That should not have happened. And then to me, the most terrifying and confusing part of this story is the shadow cowboy just getting up and walking away. Like, I'm interested to know if it, like, I know this sounds crazy, but like, was it a human? Like, did it look like a human just like walking away and he was just like dressed up in a costume like that type of yard decoration? Or did it look like a shadow? Or was it like literally like a 2D like cardboard cutout of a cowboy that's like hobbling down the street? Like, I want to know exactly how it like appeared to them, and if it like, did it seem scary, like it was some kind of demon shadow person, or did it seem like, which is weird because it was like all of a sudden a man in like dressed like a cowboy cutout is walking. I'd love to know more on this specific topic, but I think it is so freaky. Like, to me, it's almost like he was waiting for them to get back and recognize him to realize that their car was nearby. But also, something about it seems malicious to me too. Like, I don't really know. I can't wrap my head around that part of the story. I honestly would have booked it back to the car. I would have been so scared had I seen that guy just like get up and start walking when it's supposed to be a yard decoration. Forget about like Halloween decorations coming to life. It literally was like a cowboy just like randomly coming to life. That makes no sense. The next TikTok is by the user The Carrie Johnson. She tells us she believes that she jumped timelines. She says she is a lipstick fanatic, and a couple days prior, she went ahead and sharpened all of her lip liners because they were all pretty much unusable with how dull they were. Then, the day she's filming this, she goes to use one, and all of them look as if they had never been sharpened.
Something really weird happened. I just found out this morning, and I want to see if you can help me with it. So last night before I went to bed, I asked to jump timelines. 2 days ago, there was something that I did that was not the same as when I woke up today. Things were different this morning when I woke up, and I'm just wondering if this is how it works. Is this what it means when we're jumping timelines? Let me show you. So I'm obsessed with lipstick. Stay with me to the end. This will all come together. All of my lip liners were unusable. Can't line your lips with an unsharpened pencil. I did a point 2 days ago and sharpen them all. And then I put them all in the zippered pocket of this little, all the pencils and my lipstick. Okay, yesterday I asked to jump timelines. This morning I wake up, I look for my lipsticks. Can't find my lipstick, not where I put it. And when I was getting my lip liners, every lip liner back to not being sharpened. Here's another one. So it's not like the tips broke off. This one was one of my main ones. And that one, every one that was in my purse was sharpened. The tips did not just come off, otherwise they would be in my purse, and there are no tips in here. Can someone please explain to me how none of my lip liners are sharpened? I sharpened them all 2 days ago. Am I back in the timeline 2 days ago before I sharpened my pencils? Is it timeline jumping, or is there a glitch in the matrix?
Honestly, I don't know what this means. Must have been a timeline jump. You in that reality just hadn't gotten around to sharpening them yet. I don't know. That is so crazy. I was gonna say, to me, like, of all things, like lip liners, but I guess like that's something that's super important to her, so maybe it's some kind of like a sign. The universe or whoever sent the sign knew that's something she would really, really notice. But it's so weird if that's like the only thing that's really changed in her life is just her lip liners were not sharpened anymore. It's like, to me, it's so amusing how these like little glitches here and there, they're so relatively pointless, but like they terrify or confuse the person that it happens to. And then it becomes a big deal when in reality, like, it's lip liners that apparently haven't been sharpened, but it stirs up this whole story because it's something that is confusing and shouldn't have happened. Our next TikTok is by the user Baker Betty. She explains that she believes she frequently jumps timelines back and forth to realities where her husband does and does not like cilantro.
Tell me about a time when you think you shifted into a parallel reality.
So when I first met my husband, I was so excited to hear that he didn't have any food allergies or major food aversions because cooking for people is my love language, and I was so excited to have every single ingredient available to me to cook for him. But about 5 years into our relationship, he sees me chopping cilantro for dinner one night and reminds me to leave it on the side because he hates cilantro. Now at this point, I've been cooking for him for 5 years, and I know I've been putting cilantro in many, many dishes, but he swears that he has the gene that makes cilantro taste like soap, and that he has told me this many times and always asks me to leave it out of his portion. This goes on for 2 years. Every time I cook with cilantro, we have this conversation. He swears he has always hated it. I swear that he never told me prior to this time. But then all of a sudden it was like a switch flipped again. He sees me leaving it out of his portion. He asks me why, and has zero recollection of ever telling me that it tastes like soap to him or he doesn't like it. So now our relationship is categorized into two realities: pro cilantro and anti cilantro.
Again, that literally is like perfect. This is the next video. Just such like simple, dumb little things, like cilantro of all things is like, she knows that she shifted realities because her husband now doesn't like cilantro. Just such a dumb little minuscule thing, but it ends up making such an impact because it's like, what the heck is going on? And it really makes you question reality. Maybe that's the point. It's just for something like minute to make you question things, to learn more about the universe. Maybe that is the point of all these little minute glitches, is because the universe wants you to look into it a little bit more. Maybe you should become a little more in tune with your reality. Maybe that's a sign, you watching this video. Our next TikTok is by the user Sacred Light Wellness. She explains that she likes to quantum jump while she is in her sleep. On this one particular occasion, she was able to quantum jump to find her husband in another reality where they are not married, and he goes by a different name.
If you don't like crazy stories or diving down into a rabbit hole, keep scrolling. This video is not for you. But if you are, I'm going to tell you the crazy experience I had this morning when I tried to astral project. Now lately, whenever I try to astral project, I end up just quantum leaping into an alternative timeline. I'm going to call them ATs for short here. I jump into an AT and I explore. Usually when I go into an AT, I'm always curious as to what this timeline's version of husband is doing in those timelines. So that's exactly what I did. I went searching for that guy and I found him, and I walked up to him and I introduced myself. I said hello, and he, exchanged quick pleasantries, and he asked me like, who are you? And I told him, I was like, you're never going to believe me if I told you. And he was like, he looked at me intrigued and he said, try me. Who are you? And I told him, I am from the year 2023. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. You are not supposed to tell anybody the time that you are from. None of that. The gatekeepers don't like it. And that's exactly what happened. There were two gatekeepers nearby. They heard it. They gave me this shocked, crazy look of like, oh shit. And of course, they said something in their little ear speakers, walkie-talkie things. And then they started coming towards me and tried to grab me so that they can clean up the timeline. And this is the first time that I've done this. Normally I run and get out of it. But this time I looked at them and I said, no. I am here for a reason and a purpose. Leave me alone. Go away. And they freaking did. What? I didn't know you could just command them to do that shit. I did it one other time before, but I just thought that was like a fluke thing with that one gatekeeper. But anyways, so then I continued my conversation with him, and we sat down and I told him, I was like, in my timeline, you're my husband. I'm your wife. And then all of a sudden, my youngest son was sleeping in bed with me, so I felt him moving, and then I felt that energy starting to pull, and I started to like dematerialize in that time zone. And I told him, I can't stay. It's not, the energy is not stable, but I will be back. I will find you again. I quickly shot back into my body, and then my son was still asleep, so I was like, okay, go back. So then I immediately, and a lot quicker than the first time, went back into the quantum jumping, went right back to that place, and then found him again. It took me a minute. I had to walk around, but I found some people walking towards like this restaurant, so I walked towards that area, and I found him. I saw his head, and I shouted his name, and he was like, actually, my name is Doug. And I was like, your name is totally different than what it is in my timeline. But it was really fascinating. He gave me a hug when I saw him again, and I meant to ask him how much time had lapsed since the last time I had been there, but time ran out, just like now.
This is so interesting to me because I tried to lucid dream and I wasn't able to accomplish that. I will say I do, sometimes when I'm in dreams, I realize I'm in a dream, but I've never been able to choose to lucid dream no matter how hard I've tried. So when I see people astral projecting and quantum jumping while they're sleeping, it is so impressive to me because I never was even able to master lucid dreaming. I gave up on that like a long time ago. I mean, honestly, I even at one point tried shifting. And if you were on TikTok in around like fall of 2020, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a huge thing in a specific community, and I did try and take part in shifting, and I was never successful in that either. Honestly, kind of bummed about it to this day, but I really don't think at this point in time I would bother trying again. With that being said, I think it is so interesting that she was able to meet her husband in a different timeline and was able to start telling him that she's from another reality and that she is married to him in that reality. And I really wish there were more answers in this video for how he really reacted and how long she was gone when she had just woken up and gone right back to sleep. How long was it in his reality? I would love to know more about this, and I actually would love to hear more people's stories about experiences they've had astral projecting and quantum jumping. This is something that like fascinates me so much, is when people are actually capable of stepping into other timelines and being like conscious for it and manipulating things like this. Obviously not in a bad way, of course. It is so fascinating to me. And I also am very intrigued by the fact that people try to stop her, but she was able to just tell them to go away. That is really interesting to me. Our next TikTok is for the user Boo Things For You. In this TikTok, she tells us 2 experiences she had where she believes she jumped timelines while driving. And this is a story I mentioned before, where she actually was able to catch it on camera and explains to us how it looked on camera.
I have a question for those parallel universe people. Twice in the last 2 years, last year in June, I had a situation where I was driving and there was a car that was coming head on towards me, and I just stopped and took in a deep breath and just prepared for impact because there was nowhere for that car to go and nowhere for me to go. So I literally thought that we were just gonna hit head on, and nothing happened. So I have a dash cam. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get home and see where the hell this car went, because it just felt like an inevitable head-on collision. So when I got home, I told my daughter, you know, this just happened, like, sheesh, I almost just died. And I went to look at my dash cam video, and it showed the car coming head-on towards me, and then it blacked out. I get videos from my drives all the time. I live in California, so there's lots of beautiful places where I drive, and I make dash cam videos all the time to post on my social medias. And for whatever reason, I had never seen my videos glitch like that, and that's what happened. Long story short, my whole life just completely changed entirely, and so I don't know what happened. Anyways, so yesterday I was driving on the highway, and one of those construction trucks that carry rocks comes like from the far right lane, crosses over 3 lanes into my lane, and then over to the HOV lane. And I had to like make a hard stop, almost a hard stop, and then kind of like swerve to miss him or to not get hit. And then I like turn around to give him the evil eye, like, what are you doing? But then the truck wasn't there. So I'm like looking in my rearview mirror, Nothing. There's no truck behind me in any of the lanes. There wasn't that much traffic. Again, I went to look at my dash cam video and it said 1 hour drive. It was like 58-minute drive. It showed the time I left my house and the time that I arrived at my destination. And then when I press play, it shows me already in Hollywood. Like, it has no recording of me leaving the house or being on the highway at all. So, I don't know. What do you think? Did I die again yesterday?
Someone later commented and said what I actually was thinking is that they would love to see the dashcam video she's talking about. And she goes on to say that the dashcam videos are automatically deleted after a certain point from the app, but she did screen record it. However, when she went to go and look at the screen recording, she says that the part is clipped out. It's not there, it doesn't show up. So unfortunately, we cannot watch these dashcam videos, which I think would have been incredible proof that there are alternate realities and that we can jump timelines in situations like this. But either way, I think it is crazy that she was able to see the dashcam footage when it first happened and see that there are like weird glitches and unexplained things even in the video. I will say I have a hard time fully getting on board because of the fact that like we can't watch the footage. But if that were to happen to me and I looked at the footage and got confirmation that there was in fact a glitch in the Matrix, that would freak me out so bad. Knowing that it wasn't just like in my head. Actually, I don't know which would be crazier. Is like having that confusion your whole life of how did this happen, or having the proof of, oh my god, like this literally happened. I don't know, I think I like the proof though. Like, I'd prefer to know that I'm not like completely crazy. Our next TikTok is by the user Margot Rose, and she tells us a story that is actually from her mother. She explains that this glitch her mom experienced was while she was driving by herself on a road trip. She was starting to run out of gas, and conveniently, she came across a gas station. She said it was like beautifully lit up and nice looking. She got gas, and when she went in to go to the bathroom, she realized the door was locked. And when she turned around, all of the lights were off. It was pitch black, and she was just standing in a run-down gas station.
I want to hear all of your glitch in the Matrix, unexplainable, weird stories because they are fascinating to me. And we can make this a series. This can be episode 1 because I have plenty of them. This one's my mom's. She was driving from Atlanta to North Carolina. It's the middle of the night. She's on the phone with my grandma, and my grandma is helping her over maps, Google Maps, because my mom was running out of gas and she was panicking a little bit because she was in the middle of fucking nowhere, okay? Finally, over the hill, she sees a lit up, beautiful gas station. So she pulls in, she pumps her gas, uses her card, and then she goes to walk in to pee before she leaves. So she's walking towards the door, and as she gets to the door, her mom called her and goes, "You ran out of gas, didn't you?" And my mom's like, "No, I'm at a gas station. Is my car, do you not see it?" She said, "No, your car's like parked in the middle of nowhere. Where are you?" And she said, I'm at a gas station." And as she's saying that, she goes to pull the door and it's locked. And she looks up and there's a close sign, and she was like, "Oh, I just got gas, that's weird." She turns around, everything's dark. No lights on, no people, no cars, bars on the windows, boarded up windows, a completely abandoned gas station. Ugh, it makes me want to throw up thinking about it. So of course, like any normal human, my mom's like, I've lost my mind, or I've fallen into a different dimension. She speeds off, gets on the interstate, completely weirded out, looks at her gas tank, her gas is full. She got gas at this non-existent gas station. It's not on her credit card history, nothing. They go back, look on maps, there's no gas station there. Never figured it out. It's been years.
That would freak me out so bad. I am already like kind of afraid of fully functioning working gas stations during the daytime, but realizing you just got gas at a gas pump that has not been functioning for a while and there is no one there and it's pitch black in the middle of nowhere, that would be so scary. Also, imagine it didn't magically pump gas for her and she was just stuck there. Honestly, like I think this is so crazy because to me it's almost like she jumped timelines to where the gas station is functioning, so she was able to get gas and then reverted back to a regular timeline. It's like someone was looking out for her and made sure she got the gas she needed. This for sure is one of my favorite TikToks of this video because it is just like so hard to wrap my head around. Our next TikTok is by the user Candy Johnson. She explains that she asked her parents if her boyfriend could sleep over one night. When they said no, they decided they were going to go camping in their car in the middle of the woods. They ended up having a creepy experience while they were out there, and in the blink of an eye, neither of them know how it happened. They went from trying to fall asleep and being terrified in the back of their car to all of a sudden they're on the road driving and neither of them know how they got there.
But when I was 19 years old, I asked my parents if my boyfriend at the time could spend the night. I'm not going to use his real name, so we're going to call him Dave. They said no, he couldn't. But in true, teenager fashion, I decided that I wanted to do it anyway. And we didn't have a place to stay, but at the time I did have a 2000s Jeep Grand Cherokee. So we decided we would go make the day of it and we would camp overnight in my Jeep. So we spent the day fishing, and I remember when we were out fishing, it was like kind of eerily quiet, but we kept hearing these whispers, and I didn't know exactly where they were coming from because there was nobody around us and we were in a pretty secluded area. And we kind of brushed it off as just the nature, but then I started getting a little bit more freaked out, a little bit more on edge, so we decided that we were going to leave. It was like probably a quarter mile back to our car, so as we're walking out, this man comes up to us, and he's probably 10-15 feet away, and I remember looking at him, and something seemed off. Like, he had those eyes that were just like dead, soulless, and he was like, oh, nice to see other people out here, do you want to come back to my campsite, maybe have a couple drinks, hang out? And it fell off, so we're like, no thank you, we're just going to continue on to, our car, and that was that, or I thought. So we continued walking to the car, and I remember feeling like there was somebody following us. So I would stop, I would look around, and Dave would reassure me, there's nobody here, you're being paranoid, there's, no reason to freak out. So we just kept going until we got to the car. When we got to the car, we decided that we were going to drive, like, maybe a mile down the road and pull into, like, this national forest area where we probably shouldn't have been spending the night, but we were going to do it anyway because we were teenagers, and what do we have to lose? So we pull in, and we pulled towards the back, and there was, like, this opening to the side, so we pulled back there, so our car's kind of secluded, there's not anybody there, not a single person is there. And we get out, put the seats down, we make a bed in the back of the Jeep, and we're just hanging out, doing, what teenagers do, having fun. And I remember hearing people around us and being, like, kind of sketched out, like, okay, this shouldn't be happening, there's nobody here. That guy in his campsite is at least a couple miles away by now. I don't know, it was kind of freaking me out. So we continue on the night as normal, and I remember hearing a thud against the car, didn't think too much of it. And I remember seeing lights flashing. Or I thought that they were lights. He kept telling me that they were like animal eyes or something because it was nighttime. He's like, oh, it's just something walking by and you saw, as they turned their head, you saw their eye caught a glimpse. Well, I don't think that was the case because, maybe like an hour or two into it, I turn and I see somebody sprinting. I don't see the person. I see what looks like somebody running holding a flashlight. So I see the flashlight, moving as if somebody's running with it, and they're sprinting towards our car. I remember like turning and hearing a crashing sound like somebody was breaking the window, and I remember going like this and like putting my head down and hearing the crash, and then I don't remember anything else. I remember coming to essentially, but we were in the Jeep, we were driving home, we were like a town away driving towards my house. I remember looking at him and being like, how did we get out of here? I don't remember getting out of the car, I don't remember holding up the blankets, I don't remember setting up the seats, I do not remember any of that. But now it's 2 hours later, we're in the car and we're a town away and we're driving towards my house. I don't remember it, he doesn't remember it, we have no idea what happened. And I remember getting home and like running to my parents and being like, I'm so sorry, I know you said that he couldn't spend the night, but something really kind of weird just happened. And they looked at me with the most serious expression and were like, we never said that he couldn't stay the night, when they 100% did earlier in the day. So to this day, I still don't know what happened, but it was a really weird experience and I've never been able to figure it out. So that's my story.
I think this is for sure a timeline jump because of obviously like the part where they jumped and had no idea how they got there. But then also when they get back home and the parents are like, we never said that he couldn't stay over, which is like crazy because they wouldn't have been in the situation had the parents not said no to begin with. So it's like they jumped into an alternate reality where the parents never said no to him sleeping over. I wonder if maybe something bad happened to them out there in reality, like that guy ended up like finding their car or something like that, or maybe even some other weird person out in the woods. I feel like maybe something bad happened to them in an alternate reality, or in, I guess at that time, their current reality, and they jumped to a reality where nothing happened to them and they were safely getting out of there. Our next TikTok is by the user Julia Wang HTX, and she explains that there is a woman who is living her exact life in a different state. She goes over all of the freaky similarities between them. It's like they genuinely live the exact same life, and she explains that it's like she has a twin.
Proof that we live in a simulation. I have literally found my simulation twin. Like we were cut from the same cloth, made from the same template, whatever you want to call it, because she is living my life out in California. Some background info. So I live in Houston, Texas. My simulation twin, her name is Caroline. She lives in California, and we've known each other for a while because we both grew up in Dallas, and so we have a lot of mutual friends. But it wasn't until recently where we discovered how similar and how eerily similar our lives are. So this is my family right here. I'm actually Korean and I'm married to a Taiwanese man, and he is a tech entrepreneur. He started several tech companies and he develops software. So our kids, we have 3 kids. They're obviously half Taiwanese, half Korean. I have Cameron. She is the oldest. She's 8 years old. Jordan, he is my middle child. And then my son Atlas, he is 11 weeks old. So this is Caroline's beautiful family, and Caroline is Korean like I am, and she's also married to a Taiwanese man who happens to be in tech, and a lot of Asians are in tech, so that's not that big of a deal. But she has 3 kids, and her oldest is a girl, and then it's followed by 2 boys, just like me. And the age difference between her kids are the same as mine. So her daughter is named Charlotte. My daughter is named Cameron. Her middle son is named Jacob. My son is named Jordan. So yeah, it's not the same name, but it starts with the same letter. And then her youngest is named Chance. And while my son is named Atlas, she actually messaged me saying that Atlas was one of the names that they were considering because her son, her middle son, apparently likes maps a lot. And Atlas is not like a common name. Like no one I know is named Atlas. So the fact that she was considering that name is crazy. So we're both the oldest in our family. I have a sister. She has a brother. So my sister Nina, she went to Pratt Art School in New York. If you know Pratt, it's like a very small, hard to get into art school in New York. And her brother went to Pratt. So my husband is the only child, the golden son, and he unfortunately lost his father to cancer a couple years ago. And my simulation twin, her husband is also the only child, and he lost his mother to cancer the same year. And we both drive a minivan, and not only just a minivan, but we drive the Toyota Pacifica hybrid minivan. And what's crazy is like, I actually got this minivan as part of a collab with Driveway. So the fact that she owns that is crazy. To me, this is not a coincidence. Like, we have way too many similarities and very specific similarities. And I really feel like we were like made from the same template, character template for this simulation. But I don't know, call me crazy. What do you guys think?
It's really interesting to me how 2 people can like pretty much live the exact same life, but so far apart from each other. Honestly, this is so crazy to me. I don't really even know what to say about it. I can't believe that there are 2 people that like literally are living the exact same life but are not the same person or even related in any form. Honestly, it must just be some vibrational thing that they have very similar frequencies and they kind of come across the same things in their life and make very similar decisions, and it's led them to pretty much the same path, I guess. I don't know, it would be such a weird thing for me if I see another person who is like living my exact life and they're obviously not me. I don't really even know how to explain that feeling. Our next TikTok is by the user I Feel Pretty Weird, and she tells us a story about a time she got into a car wreck and believed that she should have died, but she is still here. She tells us a story of a time she is running late to work, she is rushing and driving quickly, and veers off the road. She explains to us that essentially she probably should not have survived. She should have crashed straight into a tree. But instead, she just randomly wakes up and her car is upside down and she is relatively unharmed.
You know that theory that when you die, you just go to another dimension where you're still living? I think that happened to me. Okay, so the year is 2015. I had just graduated high school and it was the summertime and I had my first job. I was driving to work and I lived in a really rural area at the time, so it took me a half hour to get to work along just like a highway, like a 2-lane highway. There's no one else on the road. I look over at the clock in my car and it says 7 o'clock on the dot. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be at work right now and I'm still like only halfway there. And this was my first job, so I was like kind of scared. So I remember turning down the music on the radio and kind of just stepping on the gas a little bit more. Nothing crazy, but just like accelerating. So next thing I know, I'm swerving to the left and what I see in front of me is a big field, but the road is like up here and the field is down here. So I would go flying into the field and die. So I overcompensated all the way to the right and now I'm going off the road towards the right. And now what I see in front of me is just a wall of tree trunks right in front of me. And I'm going fast, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, I really accepted it. Like, I was like, this is it, I'm dead. But then, and this doesn't make any sense to me, maybe like if someone understands physics better than me, like, will be able to explain this, but... Okay, so I'm veering all the way to the right. Next thing I know, my right tires are lifting up off the ground, and I'm like starting to flip to the left. Then, I guess I black out. I've never blacked out in my life, except for that moment. But one moment I was driving my car, and it's, you know, tilting to the left a little bit. And the next thing I know, I am laying on the ceiling of my car, and it's completely upside down. It's almost like I was supposed to hit the tree trunks and die, but instead, my tires lifted and I rolled and I lived. So anyway, I'm laying on the ceiling of my car and I'm laying there like this, like in fetal position, just like as if I was placed there. Like and there's blood all over. Like, my hair is matted with it, and it's like half my face is covered in blood. I'm obviously kind of freaking out, and I call 911. By the way, I later compared the time of the 911 call to the time that I looked at the clock, and I had to have only been passed out for like 30 seconds. I hear a voice outside my car, and it's a man being like, is there anyone in there? And I put my hand on the window. He helped me out of the car, and he's like, this really sweet old man. He said he was on his way going to the opposite direction to go build a ramp for someone's house who had just recently gotten into a wheelchair for free. So this man was like an angel. And then when the ambulance did come, the paramedic was like, oh, are you sure you want to take an ambulance? Because like it's gonna cost a lot of money. And like 18-year-old me was like, oh, I don't want to like cost my parents a bunch of money. So I'll just go with this old guy. In his truck. Like, that makes sense. So he takes me to the hospital. And by the way, all the nurses at the hospital knew him because apparently he had painted the walls of the hospital for free. Literal angel. So anyway, I get x-rays and everything, and there's literally nothing wrong with me. There's blood everywhere, but there's like nothing wrong with me. No fractures, nothing. And where the blood was coming from was just like 2 little scratches, a tiny little gash, and another tiny little gash, and one little one on my hand. And by the way, I have no idea how that even happened because there was no glass in the car. Like, we went and looked at it later, no glass. And I also had no bruising. So apparently I hit my head hard enough to black out, and I don't even remember it, but no bruising, just some scratches. Not even like tenderness. So they discharged me from the hospital like only a couple hours later, and I went on living my life, and everything felt super weird. Like, I'd be at home like eating dinner with my parents and watching TV and just thinking like, I'm supposed to be dead. Like, how are we being so casual right now? Like, I'm supposed to be dead right now. Also, another weird thing was the night before, my dad had sent me my great-grandmother's watch that was still ticking, still working, but after the accident, it stopped working.
The more and more I stumble across these, it really cements things for me that maybe when we have these near-death experiences that we do timeline jump. It's an interesting concept that like maybe if someone dies from a car accident like that in this reality, they're actually out there in an entirely different reality, having survived and just wondering how that's even possible. Like, that person might not be here anymore, but they're in a different timeline telling the story and wondering how the heck they survived. But they didn't. They just somehow jumped timelines. It's like, it's such a crazy concept, but also, I don't know, it kind of makes me feel better. Like, death is one of my biggest fears in life, and it kind of makes me feel better knowing that, like, maybe you just jump timelines and don't actually die. I don't know. It's like, it's a wild concept though. Our next 2 TikToks are by the user Professional Chit Chatter. This video immediately just jumps straight into a real-time experience where she explains she was doing her makeup and all of a sudden her earring fell out of her ear, but the backing is still somehow attached.
The way I'm in the middle of doing my makeup right now, and my earring just dropped into my makeup bag that's literally been attached to my ear for like 30-40 minutes, and it fell into my makeup bag, and I was like, that's where my earring fell out. I wonder if the back's not on it. And I pick it up and it literally looks just like this. Like, and that one's on, and this one was on too. This is the first one I put on. Fucking glitch in the Matrix, bro. I wish I would have been recording.
She does post a follow-up to this because there are people trying to debunk it, and someone claiming that the earring just went straight like down her ear and like ripped it on the way out, and she posts a video proving that her ear is unharmed.
So this is the regular ear, the one that it was stuck on. This is the Matrix ear, and as you can see, it's clearly stuck on there. That thing is not coming off, and it's just to prove it to you that there's not a slit in it, because I don't know why the hell I would like cut my ear and then let it fall out. So that is a simple piercing hole and not a cut. Oh my gosh, ew. But yeah, if you need a closer look,
I really do not know how this would be possible. Like, my only explanation, maybe the post, instead of actually going through the hole, went just below her ear and she put the backing on not realizing, and it like just squeezed and had enough tension to hang onto her ear for a while and then fell off. That's my only logical explanation, is just that she didn't realize she didn't actually put it on, and it was kind of just like hanging there with the tension of the post being on the back, or with the backing holding it on. I feel like that's something that you probably notice, that your earring like isn't sitting right. Like me, when I put earrings in, I then look in the mirror and then you notice that they're like lopsided because it's not actually in your ear. I feel like that's the most logical explanation, and it could very well be what happened, but also it kind of doesn't fully make sense. So I mean, that is really the best I got for this one. Our next TikTok is by the user Lisa in Sweden. And I'm kind of blabbing at myself right now because I'm kind of trying to figure out these usernames. I literally just thought it was Lizane Sweden. Like, her first name was Lizane, and then I realized it's Lisa in Sweden. I don't know. I really hope I've never, like, embarrassingly incorrectly pronounced a username before, but I almost just said Lizane in Sweden. She tells us a story about when her and her husband went to go visit their friends in another town. They have a nice dinner and go for a walk where they see a cliff and some ice skaters and think how nice it would be to go ice skating next time they're in town. They end up moving to that town and meeting up with those friends again, and when they mention their little hike, the friends have no recollection of it ever happening.
My husband and I had a shared experience that we can't explain. We don't know if it was paranormal, reality shifting, universe hopping, whatever. We have no idea what happened. A few years ago, we were invited to dinner by our Swedish friends, and so we went to their house and had dinner, and then afterwards we went for a walk, and we all walked through their neighborhood to kind of like a fjord type situation with a cliff and water, and the water was iced over and people were ice skating on. I'm like, oh, how nice. We should come back sometime and go ice skating here. A few months later, we end up moving to the town, so we have dinner with them more often, and we go back to their house for dinner and we say, hey, can we go on that same walk that we went on a few months ago? And they looked at us like we were crazy. They're like, what are you talking about? We didn't go on a walk? So we explain the cliff and the ice skating and everything, and they just looked at us and they're like, that does not exist here. We don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, we looked at the map and no such cliff or water or anything existed in their area, so we can't explain what happened.
I find it really interesting that both of them remember this experience, because normally it's like just one person remembers this thing, but the fact that it seems like both of them may have potentially jumped timelines, and that also makes me wonder like how geographical things apply to jumping timelines. Like, is there a reality in which Illinois has tons of mountains and doesn't have mostly just farmland? Is there a reality in which the terrain of like California versus Illinois are swapped? Like, is that a thing that can happen? But what's interesting to me is like a cliff and like a body of water. That is like interesting how that would even be possible. I guess maybe it is because that's what they experience, but that is an aspect of like I've never thought about before. The terrain can change in certain areas depending on the timeline. I don't know, but that is now something I will probably be deep diving on to find out more about. Our next 3 TikToks are by the user SweetFaceJ86. The first 2 and the third one are on separate topics. So she experiences 2 glitches in the Matrix. In the very first one, she has an instance where it appears that Siri or her phone is reading her mind, which I know sounds kind of crazy, but hear me out. Like, when you watch this video, it will make more sense. And then she posts a part 2 that is kind of debunking any questions.
Guys, we are in a simulation and I just got proof. And I don't usually do videos like this, but I literally just got proof. I can't even talk. This just happened right now and I'm gonna show you proof. My heart is beating a million miles a minute. Okay, so I just finished breakfast, right? Mind you, I'm sitting here by myself and I fell back to sleep after I woke up to go to my morning workout, right? And as I'm eating breakfast, I'm thinking to myself, dude, why was I so exhausted? I went to bed at a decent time for me not to be that exhausted. Why did I fall back asleep? So, you know, it's late morning now. Like, I wanted to get up, you know, and be up by 5:30, 6 o'clock. Then it dawned on me, oh, that's right. We just added a medication to my regimen to help with anxiety. That it's like a bedtime thing. It's a very low dose. And I remember that I took it around 9 p.m., around 9, 10 p.m. And I thought to myself, that might be what it is, right? That I'm taking it too late, so it's like, it's making me groggy or it's making me tired, even though it's not, anyways, that's the point. So I go, let me put a reminder for earlier in the evening to take it, okay? Guys, I'm gonna show you proof of this. So I'm sitting here eating breakfast, watching videos, right? And I go, hey, you know her name? I go, set a daily alarm for 7 p.m. That's all I say, right? She comes back and says to me, and I'm gonna show you the proof. She says, a 7 p.m. alarm for your anxiety pill has been set. I didn't say what the alarm was for. I didn't even say it out loud. This was all an internal dialogue that I was having. No one is here. I'm going to freaking show you, because the thing came up at the top. Look. So like I said, I was watching videos. So I was watching this lady's video about, you know, the gossip, whatever. And look at what it says. Look at that. Now, look at how, and one can say, oh, you Photoshop that. Watch this. So this photo, for some reason, I had to crop it because when it's big, you can't see the top. But watch this. Look at the Siri bubble right here. Because she had just spoke it to me. I have never been one to really like feed into those type of things. But if that isn't proof that we're in a simulation, if that isn't proof that these things are reading our minds, That's just fucking, that just blew my mind. I don't know.
Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Set a daily alarm for 7 p.m.
I turned on your anxiety PM alarm at 7 p.m. starting today.
Stunning girl, Charmix, Red Rumby. I got it all, y'all. I don't live in red and box and everything else.
I have to respond to this in a video response because I keep getting this comment over and over again, and I just have to clarify. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, some crazy shit happened to me earlier today and I caught it on camera, and you can go ahead and click here and go to that video. Now, for those of you who have seen it and who think this, let me clarify something for you. That would make sense had I been on anxiety medication previously. I was just prescribed this medication this week, like literally actually on Friday, and I picked it up on Sunday. I was just prescribed it. Today will be my 3rd dose. Today, okay? So I have never had a need to have anxiety pill as a labeled alarm. Also, in the video, you can see, and I label it in the video, like I pointed out, where when I'm thinking about it, I'm contemplating, do I want to do it for 6 o'clock or 7? Is 6 too early? 6 or 7? And at the last second, I go 7 p.m. That alone, like, why, like, I feel like that says enough. And thirdly, if you go through my page, I talk about fitness, I talk about shopping, I give my unsolicited advice about bullshit, I talk about pop culture, I talk about that type of stuff. I do not post about conspiracy theories, I don't post about any of those type of things. So it's just not what I do. This was a genuine thing that happened. This was a genuine, actual, organic moment that I happened to catch on my Ring camera. So no, it was not labeled like that in my alarms. It was not labeled like that in any of my alarms. This is my first week taking anxiety meds. Okay, bye.
I think this is crazy. I don't know. I really wouldn't put it past the creators of technology if they were able to make something that can read our minds. I mean, there are a lot of times that there are some freaky coincidences in like the ads that show up for me on Google or Instagram or Facebook. If you told me that our phones are reading our minds, I would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But one thing I do want to stress about is how she says that she has never been on any kind of anxiety meds before, so there is no reason why she would have a preset anxiety med alarm when she is only 3 days into starting this. That does not make sense, that she would have it for a time that she has not been taking her meds at before. Like if 7 o'clock is a new time for her because she was taking it 8 or 9 before, why would she have a 7 o'clock alarm set for something that she's never done at that time before? You know, I can't say one way or another if she's one of those people that like has a bajillion alarms, like me. I never delete my alarms. Or if she's one of those people that, you know, has only a few specific alarms, where that would make this even freakier. People are pointing out about how it says that it turned on an alarm rather than created an alarm. I personally don't really know the lingo. I don't use Siri for making alarms because she never does it exactly how I want it to. So I just do it myself. But, you know, maybe it was just phrased like that, but it was a brand new alarm. I do not know. What I do know is that there's no reason that alarm should have existed before had she not taken it at 7 p.m. before, which she says that she didn't. So I really don't know how to explain that one. In the third TikTok I'm about to show you, she explains that she is actually about to like sit down and make a response video for some of these comments on the original glitch video when she hears a fly buzzing around and goes to get a fly swatter, and I don't know how to explain it other than like the fly swatter magically appears right where she was sitting.
At this point, you guys are gonna fucking think that I am doing this for attention. You're gonna think that I'm doing this to go viral. But I promise you that is not the case. I swear that this is not, like, if I had not caught what I'm about to show you again on camera, you would think she's bullshitting, just like the previous video. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, earlier today I posted a video about some crazy shit that happened that I caught on my Ring camera. I posted it and it's been getting a lot of traction. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like 3 or 4 videos behind this one. I'm wearing a purple robe. Anyway, let me just give you a little bit of a backdrop. I normally film in my office, my beauty room, or my bedroom. That's where I usually am. Like I have lighting that, like that's where I usually film. Because of my ADHD, I never sit in my living room. Like, ask any of my family members, I never sit in this living room where you currently see me. I never sit here. I never film here. Like, I just don't. I don't. First of all, I never sit because I just never sit. But anyways, I decided to sit right there and go through the comments, right? And I'm going through the comments of that video, and I noticed that I keep getting the same comment of, oh, you probably already had that labeled. And because I noticed that I continuously got that same comment, I was going to respond with a video response, which I've already posted. It's the video right before this one. But because this just happened while I was filming that, I have to post this. This is insane. So I'm going to show you at the end of this. Once again, there is something going on. There's a glitch in the matrix. I don't know what's today's date, the 16th or the 17th. I don't know what this date has to do with anything, but something is going on. This is not my typical content. I don't talk about conspiracy theories. I don't talk about matrix. That's not my thing. That's not my zhuzh. But if I hadn't caught it, you would not fucking believe me. I'll stop talking. Okay. So what do? I'm sitting there and I'm about to respond. I put some lip gloss on. I'm about to respond in a response video, and I hear a fly behind me, and I detest flies. Like, when I tell you I detest flies, I detest flies. So I keep a fly swatter right through the kitchen, right behind that. Wait, I can't do it. That wall, right? You're gonna watch me get up to go get it. Now, there should be no reason that fly swatter is not there. I clean up my house every night, every day. It's just where it goes. I make sure everything is in its place. And as you can see, my house is nice and quiet. There's a little bit of a mess on the kitchen table because of the mail and whatever, okay? I go to get the fly swatter. Notice that it's not there. I was just about to go into my bedroom because I'm like, where else would it be? Did I try to swat a fly last night in my room? Which I know I did not, because I would not go to bed without, anyways. And on the corner of my eye, right there, I see the fly swatter. Mind you, I had just been sitting right there, and it was not there. The look on my face says it all. And then I look up at the camera like, holy shit, I caught that again. I'll go ahead and post it at the end of this. You can say I'm an attention seeker. You can say that I'm trying to go viral. You can say that I'm trying to be clickbait. But I'm telling you here and now, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This is 100% authentic and genuine. Believe what you want. I am not going to convince anyone because I know what the fuck is real. Like that motherfucker there, that was not real. Okay, bye.
Where's that fucking clock? Fucking hate flies. I hate flies. The fuck is my fly swatter?
Honestly, it is such a bummer that you can't see the couch, like the actual couch cushion where the fly swatter was sitting in this video, because it would be so incredible if you could just like see it like poof and like appear. That would be amazing. I mean, believe me, there are so many times where I am like frantically searching for something and it is like right in front of me or is like in my hand the whole time. And recently I just bought an entire new pack of charger cables because I literally dug through every drawer that it would make sense for them to possibly be in and searched all around my like work area where I keep technology things. Could not find them for the life of me. It turns out they were sitting on a stool that I was searching right next to the entire time. So now I have like 10 different charger cords. I'm not gonna have to buy new ones for like years because I rebought them because I couldn't find them sitting in front of my face. So believe me, I know people can just like not see things. And to me, this one isn't as crazy as the first one. I think it's a very good possibility that maybe she just didn't put it away. I don't know. But I thought it was interesting to include nonetheless because she posted it like right after this one and was all freaked out about having a second glitch, so I did want to include that. Those were our final TikToks of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really love doing glitches. It is just such a mind-boggling thing to wrap your head around. If you guys come across any Glitch in the Matrix TikToks that you want me to make another video with, feel free to tag me in them. My links are all down below. If you guys did like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I will pop a couple recommendations up on the screen here of similar videos that you can check out, as well as a subscribe button here. Please let me know which TikTok was your favorite. If you have any explanations for any of them or ways to debunk any of them, I am open to debunking. I just love the kind of conversation that these videos create. So let me know your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.